a city of splendor and strain. 17th century Paris trembled between glory and decay. Narrow streets wire of mud, smoke, and perfume. Markets roared while church bells warned of unrest. Carriages clattered past beggars and courtiers alike, the Seine carrying both commerce and corruption. Behind shuttered windows, cardinals schemed and poets whispered rebellion. Paris was brilliant, volatile, and hungry. A city poised on the edge of transformation. Welcome to Paris in the 17th century. On Olivier, Paris felt raw and unsettled. The low marshy island lay strewn with timber yards and warehouses. Its muddy banks crowded with barges, unloading grain and firewood. Olivier was all labor and river grit. At Port Sandon, triumph met the city's dust. The great arch rose above the churn of carts and traders.
Do not let it fall into enemy hands.
Its carved victories watching over daily commotion. At the Hôtel de Ville, Paris displayed its stern civic face. The great Renaissance facade rose above the square like a monument to order. Yet beneath its carved stone, the city's pulse beat hard and uncertain. Messengers hurried across the cobbles with sealed decrees, and the murmur of disputes drifted from crowded halls where merchants, magistrates, and petitioners pressed their claims. Outside, vendors mingled with agitators, their shouts echoing off the walls as the Seine's cold wind swept the square. Here, power felt both ceremonial and fragile. On the Pont Neuf, Paris gathered in all its unruly glory. A wide stone span thronged with vendors, jugglers, barbers, and thieves. Horses clattered past nobles in bright silks, while gossip, pamphlets, and rumors changed hands as quickly as coins. Beneath the bridge's arches, ferrymen shouted, and river smells rose thick and sour. It was the city's great crossroads, loud, watchful, and alive, where every breath felt charged with possibility of deceit.
They're watching.
At the Palais Royal, Paris revealed its polished mask of power and intrigue behind its dignified arcades. Courtiers traded secrets, and the garden offered a rare hush. Gravel paths, clipped trees, and murmuring fountains. It was elegance draped over tension. At the Luxembourg Palace, Queen Marie de Medici's grandeur stood apart from the city's clamor. The palace rose serene and stately, overlooking gardens where ordered paths, statues, and bright parks softened the air. Noble families strolled among trimmed hedges, their quiet steps masking courtly schemes. At Place Victor Perry displayed its triumphs in stone. Merchants, soldiers, and curious onlookers drifted through the open space, their footsteps softened by the symmetry around them. It was elegance shaped into certainty. An ordered calm meant to quiet the city's restless spirit. Rising proud above polished facades that echoed the king's authority, Henrienne towered above the Ile de Cite, its darkened stone catching the river light like a solemn beacon. Bells shuddered through the streets, and inside incense drifted beneath vated shadows, where worshippers murmured their hopes and fears. At the city's western edge, the Tuileries gardens stretched in ordered rows of trees and gravel paths, offering Parisians a rare sweep of calm. Beyond them stood the Porte de la Conférence, where the city thinned into open ground, and the river breeze carried dust and courtly gossip alike. At Port Saint-Bernard, the city opened to the river's rougher currents. Barges pressed in with grain and timber, their crews shouting over the rumble of carts heading for the markets. The old gates stood weathered but watchful, marking a threshold where Paris's crowded streets met the harder labor of the Seine. Parisians lived densely packed. Thousands of families stacked in tall, crowded houses that leaned over narrow streets. The city swelled past 500,000 souls. Artisans, clerks, servants, and merchants moving through a daily press of noise and labor. Privacy rare, and the city's pulse felt in every stairwell and courtyard. The poor Paris crowded church steps and bridge corners, wrapped in rags against the city's damp winds. Beggars pleaded for coins or crusts, children trailing beside them with hollow eyes. Amid markets and palaces, their presence was constant, a quiet reminder of hunger woven into the daily life of the capital. Winters in 17th century Paris bit harder than today. The Seine often freezing solid. Parisians flocked onto the ice with skates, sleds, and makeshift stalls, turning the frozen river into a bustling winter fair. And briefly carefree, a 17th century Parisian patissier worked amid warm ovens, and the sweet smell of sugar and butter, tarts, biscuits, and glazed fruits drew crowds to his store, where nobles and laborers alike paused for small luxuries.
See that they're
His
not
craft
overcharged.
offered a brief
Freshly
escape,
baked, my lord, warm from
delicate pleasures in a city
Burn
of
it down.
noise
They're
and
coming.
hunger.
Fight, no mercy.
In the Galerie du Parly, booksellers offered fresh pamphlets and forbidden verses, while the haberdashers' stalls shimmered with ribbons and fine cloth, bargaining, and the rustle of ambition. Parisian life compressed into a single crowded corridor. In 1628, Louis XIII and Cardinal Richelieu ruled in a tense harmony, Richelieu's strategy guiding the king through siege and intrigue. Their alliance held the realm together by will alone.
I find this route
Cardinal
more
Mazarin
advantageous than the others.
governed with calm,
We must secure the passes
deliberate
before winter sets in.
intelligence, steering France through war, rebellion, and uneasy peace. Soft-spoken, but resolute, he shaped the young Louis XIV's path. Son of Louis XIII, Louis XIV grew up remembering the unrest that once shook Paris, and he vowed to command the city through grandeur as much as authority. As king, he reshaped the capital with sweeping ambition, clearing old walls to create broad boulevards, carving the Place de Victor and PLL Bonne into the city's dense heart, and commissioning triumphal arches like Port Saint-Martin to glorify royal power. He founded great institutions, strengthened themes, and filled Paris with architects, sculptors and fountain makers who carried out his vision of classical elegance. Even as Versailles became his courtly son, Paris remained his public stage, transformed, ordered, and illuminated by his will. Under Louis XIV, the city took on a new identity, disciplined, brilliant, and unmistakably shaped by the king who intended it to reflect his radiance. Louis XIV's family gathered around him in a constellation of duty and ambition. The dower bore the burden of inheritance, his brothers shaped for service and alliance. The royal women, daughters, nieces, and Madame de Montino exerted calm strategic influence within the court. Together, they formed a disciplined dynasty. By the late 17th century, the Tuileries Gardens had been reshaped by Louis XIV and Linot into sweeping geometric order.
We must remain
Clipped hedges and
composed.
precise
Don't let them see
paths
us.
drew Parisians into a landscape of royal symmetry. Calm, measured, and impeccably arranged. That is all for this reconstruction of 17th century Paris. Subscribe for more journeys into the past.